All right, everyone. Hello, welcome. Today we have another special guest. All of our guests are kind of special, but this one is a little extra special. We have Bill Ottman, CEO and founder of Minds. And hey,
Hey,
Bill.
thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um,
What's up, guys?
let's get right into it. So Minds is, I would say, a well recognized at this point social media app. But how would you compare it right now to like Twitter and Instagram and those other apps?
So, well, thanks for having me, guys. And definitely down to go through all the differences. But in the interest of your podcast, to be honest, I feel like it would be great to talk about just like what's going on in the world. I think it's going to be probably more exciting for people. But to answer your question, so mine's feels similar to major social media apps, but everything is inverted basically. So all of our code is open source. All of mainstream social media apps are totally closed and you have no access to see what's really going on. We're very privacy focused. We don't require any personal information. So you can be anonymous if you want. A lot of people aren't. We also like engineer it so that we can't even access people's private messages, so that, if for any reason we were, forced to try to do that, or somebody, there was some sort of compromise or something, it wouldn't even be possible with encryption. So, and I think, encryption is becoming more mainstream. But like the encryption that like WhatsApp uses and Telegram and stuff is proprietary. So you can't inspect it to really ensure that it is what they're saying it is. And then we've been focusing on monetization heavily. We'll have to get you guys monetized after this. But basically, we have a few different ways that creators can earn revenue. One is through our blockchain token reward system, which is free for anybody, and you just earn tokens for your contributions. And we're working on like liquidity provisions for this, so that so that the community can actually like fuel the value of the token. And there's really amazing things happening on decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, where these tokens have value, and it's built by the community, and people can use them on that app. You can boost your posts with the token. One token gets you 1,000 extra views. You can tip people, but we're going to bring in all these kind of staking mechanisms, so you can stake your tokens and get more exposure, more perks, more rewards. So that's a really unique component. And then we also have like fiat payments as well. So like we just launched Minds Plus, which it's a membership, but essentially what we're doing is if you pay $5 a month for Minds Plus, you get access to like this whole separate feed of exclusive content. And all of the users who have Minds Plus can submit content into that feed. And we take a rev share and share it with those creators who are in Minds Plus, who post the popular content in that feed. So the analogy is like, imagine if Netflix allowed you to upload a film, and if it did well, they would pay you out. That's pretty much what it is, except, we're not really working with like Hollywood yet. So it's most of it's just like indie creators, making videos, doing podcasts, that kind of stuff. But, we're taking 25% of our revenue and proportionally sharing that with the people who post popular stuff in there. And then we have Minds Pro also, and we have memberships, so you can set up your own memberships and people can pay you on a recurring basis. But with Minds Pro, the money has to come from somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So, we have set up this sort of, you pay in and we distribute it to the people who perform the best. So like with Minds Pro, it's like $40 a month, but you earn for all the page views you get, you earn an RPM, like between $5 and $10 for like any page views you're getting, or and I mean that's really like how people are making money on YouTube, except YouTube, they're getting paid per 1,000 views of the video, but it's fueled by advertisers. And so the problem with the advertising model is that it's like totally the advertisers are basically deciding, well, but there's sort of a false premise going on where, YouTube is acting like advertisers don't want to monetize on certain, conservative content or more controversial content or whatever. But I don't think that's entirely true. I think that there's really just like a handful of advertisers who sort of run the show over there. And they're saying we don't like this because obviously there's advertisers who would, be happy to run ads over like Crowder's content. So he got demonetized, but it's like there's thousands of advertisers who would love to advertise with him. So it's sort of a false premise. But we are trying to bring in advertising in a way that's like non-surveillance based, and we just don't want the network to be dependent on like third-party advertising, because when you're dependent on them, then they can shut down the revenue stream on a moment's notice, and that would screw over not only us but all the creators. And so we have to do it in like a much more grassroots, like from the ground up way, and like build our own system, as opposed to just like plugging in these little ad codes, which is what most sites do. But when you plug in those ad codes to your site, first of all, that's surveillance, really disgusting, invasive surveillance. And they can just cut it off on a moment's notice if they see something on your site that they don't like. So I think that pretty much covers it. But like we've been working a lot on like totally revamping the Messenger, integrating the Matrix protocol, because our Messenger is like really not okay right now. It's really old, and
we actually had a problem with that too. Like I was trying to send a message and it asked me for a password, and I get the kind of security to double check, but it was a little bit
so that's like the secondary layer of encryption password, so that we can't access it. But you got to choose your battles, and like we've been revamping the whole UX over. I mean, Tarik, you've probably noticed how it's changed.
Yeah,
even since we've known each other. So yeah, I'll shut up though.
No, that was great. Fedor, you have any questions?
Yeah, that was a fucking great like introduction, And I gotta mention to all people, so mine's is probably like one of the few American social medias that are actually not banned in China. So
we actually did just get banned. We got banned on the Chinese App Store. I don't think we're fully banned, but we are banned on iOS in China. I'm pretty sure, unless you can prove me otherwise. Are you in China?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, really? Do you have an iPhone or Android?
Yeah, an iPhone.
We're in the store?
Nah, like the problem is the store on like Apple Store is in like Russian, account. But I tried to access mines today just without VPN, and it worked perfectly fine.
Okay, that's good news. I don't have my hopes set too high, but we'll see. I feel like the hammer's going to come down, but maybe not. I don't know.
And you know what? I feel like the company, the social media was built by people and for people. So you try to imply all this, just good relationship with like customer and developers. So it's basically user-friendly, and it is a community rather than a social media. It's just a big group of friendly and sociable people. So how did you come up with this idea, Bill? Like, I just wonder. You were like...
I just always thought that there was going to inevitably be an open source social network that becomes dominant. And, there's a couple open source options out there. There's a lot of apps that are getting traction right now. But basically most of them are not open source and really not privacy focused. So and I don't need to name names, but I think, we all know who kind of the apps that are growing in the alternative space who are preaching free speech and privacy, but they're just not. I mean, they don't actually have a free speech policy. They don't actually care about privacy, because you can't really claim to care about privacy. First of all, if you're like forcing people to give you ID. Second of all, if you're not open source, because if you're not open source, then you're just asking people to trust you, and you can't, all of the hackers can't go around and inspect your code. So that's okay though. Like, it's good that alternatives are rising up, and that's just giving more credibility to the alternative space in general. But like, eventually people are going to realize like, oh, okay. And so there would always be a need for something that's fully transparent. And the other thing that I think is important is that we're community owned. So we have like over 1,500 community shareholders, and we're going to be opening it up for more so the community can actually invest and own stock, which is pretty rare. There's only like a few hundred companies in the world that even have accomplished this. So that's a pretty big deal. And yeah, I mean, I think that I just look at it like Linux, Firefox, Bitcoin, like look at all of these emerging frameworks, which are like totally dominant in their space, and they're all open source. And that is the reason that they're winning, because anyone can take the code, anyone can run the code, anyone can independently verify it. It's decentralized. So that's really just where things are going in the long term. But it's still early days. And so like, there's still, sometimes I feel like maybe we're thinking a little bit too far ahead. But
yeah, that's
because,
I actually want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
How do you get people to like, who aren't that knowledgeable on like coding and how these apps are designed, to understand why it's better? I mean, I understand like telling them about privacy helps, but a lot of people don't care about privacy. Like, how do you kind of shock them or explain to them like, this is how bad it is if you keep using these apps, and this is why we need to transition over to more open source?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, because the mainstream apps are very functionally impressive, and they work so well. I mean, this app, for instance, Discord, they are, I know someone on their board, and they're very smart developers, great designers. But it's the old paradigm. I mean, it's closed source software, and we don't really know what they're doing in terms of privacy. I think that they've been decent with free speech, but at the same, I mean, like for instance, they call these rooms servers. They're not servers. They just say that. They just say that to make you feel like you're like a hacker or something. Yeah. But it's just a group on a server. It's not like actually a server. So it's sort of like they're trying to appeal to the gamer community and more of the hacker community. And look, that's fine. But at the end of the day, open source is going to catch up. See, Tarik, I guess like to answer your question, like you shouldn't have to make people care. It's the open source developer's responsibility to make the app good enough so that people can't even tell the difference. And then you get, basically the hardcore community of hackers and journalists and, all of the, I guess, more savvy people who do care about privacy. You get them as your core audience in the core community. But then you have to get the app to be totally functionally equivalent with like Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, all that. And then at a certain point, when the developers are basically the smartest people in the world at the end of the day, like they're the ones engineering what's going on in the world. So if you can convince all of the developers to work on a project, then, within like a period of 10 years, and, the UX gets sick enough so that people want to come and the incentives are there, the mainstream will come. It's like, look at what happened with Wikipedia. I mean, no one cares about the fact that Wikipedia the code is open source. No one even knows that. But Wikipedia is just what everybody uses. You're not going to like Encarta.com to check out the article about like Elon Musk. You're just searching Elon Musk, and then you're just, Wikipedia is popping up and you're going there. And so I think that they've done it sort of perfectly. It's like in the background. But what you don't realize is that the reason that it got there is because they have these principles that like everybody just was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Okay. And it worked.
Yeah. So, you did say you kind of wanted to talk about what's going on in the world. So, is there something in particular? I have I'd like to ask you about your take on the elections, but.
Yeah, I mean, no, not really. More just I've done a bunch of interviews talking about mines, and it's not like I want to talk about mines all the time. I just think that I don't want people to start like being like, oh, I in the interest of your podcast, I don't want to talk about the same thing that I've talked about on like a bunch of other podcasts.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
But I mean, it's crazy. It's unprecedented what's going on right now in terms of like voting and, collective consciousness and consensus. I think the craziest thing, I don't know if you guys watched, Alex on Tim's show last night?
No, I did see that he showed up, but no, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I recommend. But one of the cool points they were talking about was that there's like two separate realities forming now. And so you sort of have like these totally different versions of truth, which, half of the country or world, because everyone's watching us, just with what people think is real and right. And I mean, contesting elections is really interesting because, I mean, we've all known for decades that voting machines and whatnot have, can easily be hacked. And it's just really interesting. And then people are like, oh, but you can't question the integrity of the election because then everybody loses trust in the whole process. And there's a little bit of truth on both sides, but again, it's a lot of it. The voting process is not working.
Right.
Even Snowden did a video that people have been sharing around from like 5 years ago, where he talks about how easy it is to hack voting machines and why it's so important to have like a backup paper ballot audit trail. And
here's an interesting point. It's like I actually wrote an article a while back for Subverse about like these hack-proof voting machines and how that would. I when I was writing, I was like, "Yo, this would change everything." Like, do you have some kind of idea of how that could work, or if that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, that's what cryptographic signatures and keys can kind of accomplish. So you could use a blockchain, and or you could just use crypto keys generally. But basically, like, if every citizen was given a key pair, and I mean, the thing is, if you can pay your taxes online if you can do all of these like important government actions online, like why realistically wouldn't you be able to vote and like verify your identity? I mean, you walk into a school to vote, and it's like, are they really verifying your identity? It's like they're sort of looking at your ID, sort of.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot of old people running it too. I don't even think most of them have.
Yeah, there's
eyesight.
I mean, my wife went in. This is like a small thing, but like at my old house, you know, my wife never actually changed her address with the city. So we actually voted in 2 different places, but like she voted in this election with, you know, under the wrong address. So that's not like a huge deal, but like it was wrong. It wasn't, you know, it was just a case of like they allowed her to vote even though it was not where she lives. So I don't think that's I don't even know if that's necessarily a problem, because I think we're like generally in the same town, but you know, districts, I don't know, it might even be different districts slightly, which is a problem, you would think. And so that's just a tiny little example that's happening clearly there's uncountable cases of that kind of stuff going on. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's lots of work going into this with blockchain voting and just crypto voting in general. But I mean, the government is so bad at building technology. Like, you know, they spend billions of dollars on like a website for healthcare, and like it's so mismanaged, but it's totally possible. And we're gonna go there. And I don't think that means that you shouldn't have like paper ballots as an option as well, or maybe both. Maybe you go in and you do, you know, the crypto online vote, and you also do I don't know. I mean,
yeah, no, that sounds.
I think we should at least be beta testing.
That would be, because you know, you'd have the online version, and then you'd have like the paper ballot, and then you could even use that as like a triple check to make sure, you know, the same person with the online identity and the in-person paper ballot matched up, and that's how you know it was the same person. So
yep, exactly. And it's not like they don't have databases to check your identity, and there's so many identity companies emerging who can, you know, like for instance on Coinbase even, which is like a place where you can go buy cryptocurrencies. They have systems where basically you like have to take screenshots. You even like hop on a quick little video chat with somebody over on their end. Like say you lose your password and stuff, they're really strict on letting you just like reset the password. So you have to go through this whole identity verification if you ever lose your password. And like there are little apps now where you can just hop into a quick video chat, and someone over there will verify that it's you based on your ID.
That's great.
It's just, you know, there's tech like that exists. So to say that someone can't verify their identity online, like you can, it's actually probably more, it's you know, and it's actually recorded, so there's evidence of it. Like there's no evidence of me going or any of us going into the voter booth, really, other than the fact that the ballot exists.
All right. Yeah, this is why, honestly, I was not a big fan of Joe Biden, because just electing another older person who really doesn't understand the levels of technology that we have nowadays, I think it's just going to be a lot more of the same. We're going to have a lot of the same problems repeating. Joe Biden says that he's going to listen to, you know, people, but I don't know if the people around him also know about these things, you know. I was a big fan of Andrew Yang because he seems to be much more in touch with where we are technologically, at least. But yeah, it's
for sure.
rough,
He's much more tuned in, and it's crazy that they just knew that they could win on kind of the identity game. and they just shoehorned the, Kamala and Joe in there because they just had the power, and they knew that they liked the fact that Kamala was minority. And I don't know, there's probably other reasons, but she's also like very embedded in the power structure. And it is like, I don't know, Tarik, what are your thoughts on kind of the racial identity component of, well, they're not elected yet, but like it's similar with Obama. Like, how do you feel about that? Because like obviously they're corrupt, but there's also sort of benefits of that happening.
Right. The way I feel about it is, first and foremost, I look at a person's policies first. Absolutely, like that's got to be the first thing. It's like, what does your record say about, policies that you've passed? Were they beneficial? Kamal has some pretty, suspicious looking policies in terms of how she was locking people up for, that's their children's truancy. That was a big red flag for me. I understand how she might have thought that would increase people's diligence in sending their kids to school, but I think maybe she didn't really talk to those people and understand that it's hard to control your kids, especially if you have a lot of other things that you have to worry about, a lot of other pressures in life, and having another pressure of like, oh, I might have to pay a fine or go to jail for this is like, I think it's a little ridiculous. But in terms of the fact that she's going to be the first black female as well as Indian female in the White House as vice president, I think it is a good thing to see as a person of color. It's great to see that, okay, we can make it, and there's no need there. It helps bring down a skepticism or like a cynicism about politics. It's like, look, someone did make it, but at the same time, it's also about her character. You got to think like, I might think like, yeah, it's great to see her, but what kind of person is she? She doesn't really come from the same kind of neighborhoods that she like, I guess symbolizes. It's like I would rather see,
it's like one step forward, two steps back, sort of.
Right. I'd rather see someone with like, I don't know, with the ability to really show like that they came from that kind of past, or like, they literally came from projects or something and moved their way up. That would be more symbolic to me.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the Tulsi Yang combo would have achieved obviously both of those things, and it would be obviously far more coherent,
more
and
substantial,
principled. So that's too bad, but it's just crazy. It's crazy that they know they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, case in point, when Rogan was going to have the debate and Trump was like, all right, let's do it, and Biden just wouldn't do it. I mean, and Tulsi and Yang have both been on his show, and you and Bernie, and it's just like, wow, you are unwilling to do the show that essentially gives you any chance at having any street cred, and you're just unwilling to do that. It's really scary because and just he's loading the cabinet with lobbyists, and it's just exactly what we knew it was going to be. And they're starting to, the wars are probably gonna flare up again. And yeah, you're right. Just like totally no conception of the future of technology, just bloat. And it's, well, at the end of the day, worst case scenario, it's like 4 years. The government is designed in a way that allows it to not get dominated, which is great, and which is why we have a cool system.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking of cool systems, man, regarding what you guys been talking about, the elections and stuff, I feel like every time when I try to hop on Twitter or, other social medias, I have an anxiety to be bombarded by those crazy people, posting like 24/7. So yeah, why do you think not just me, but like many people around the world have this anxiety of using social medias right now? And how do Mayans cope with that?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, did you guys see The Social Dilemma?
Yeah,
You watch it?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that I really value zooming out on it and looking at just what social media in general is doing to us, like even minds, quite frankly. And so because it's all about attention and addiction, really. And we're just so pathetic how addicted we all are. And it's like we're just cuddling our phones in bed. And
I don't do that, but
that's good. I try not to.
but that's probably why
certainly
we're not so popular. We're not. We get a lot of rejections for the podcast. It's crazy how many people don't even respond now. That's like the new way to say no. It's like someone reaches out to you and you just don't respond. You leave it on scene. It's like, all right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, time is scarce for some. I mean, it's like people just get so overloaded, and you really do have to figure out how to like hack attention. And but also like, yeah, I don't know, like when you get big enough where you just close off any kind of grassroots stuff, it's just like, to me, that's really scary, of like just feeling like I don't have time to talk to like anyone. Like I sort of have like a different strategy with it. Like I'll basically, because no one's that busy. Like people pretend they are, but and you can make yourself that busy, but and you know what? Maybe there probably is a certain point. I mean, you being able to say no is a very important skill in life to certain things. But saying yes is also a very important skill. Like that's the whole thing with improv, and just like as a general philosophy, saying yes can get you really far. And I think that it's ultimately much more of a positive. Like you can get sort of, you don't want to be a yes man, but you also don't want to say no to everything. But I think you kind of want to err on the side of yes, because it's just more fun to kind of do things that you don't expect. Do you ever see that Jim Carrey movie?
Yeah.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's so true. It's just like all these things open up when you start doing it. And when you say no, you totally will just sit at your house all day.
Right.
On social media.
Yeah.
But no, I just got to say, thanks a lot for doing this. It's like, you have been like another person who said yes to us. There's been a lot of people who said no, but you did say yes. And it also shows something about you. It shows that, yeah, no matter how big you got, you still remember the people who you've met along the way. And I really appreciate it. I thought when we were working together that you always kind of stood out to me around all those other people as someone who is just like still down to earth.
Likewise, man. I'm really glad that our paths were able to cross. How did you guys meet?
It's a funny story. We've talked about it before. Fedor, you want to tell it this time?
You don't have to go. Give me the quick version.
Quick version is we were both studying in China, and I was trying to learn Russian. I met some Russian guys. They invited me to a breakdancing session, and Fedor was there, and he just asked me. He was like, "Yo, man, where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, guy who's interested in me. I'm from New York, man." He was like, "Oh, really?" oh yeah, let's hang out. You know, that was it. After that,
Nice.
Yeah, that was a
That's awesome,
different
man. It's like,
reaction, man. That was like, oh, New York, goddamn. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said yes. Luckily, you went out that night to meet some new people. It's crazy, like the way social groups are changing and accelerating in the way that like social dynamics are working now too. It's just like everything is totally upside down, and it's really scary, like the way that people behave in public, like out of not necessarily bad reason, but just like fear of the virus. And like I was taking my kid to the beach the other day, and my wife and I were there, and we weren't like right near people, but like we weren't wearing masks. Like there's not like a mask mandate here, so I'm not gonna wear a mask outside if they're like if I don't need to. Like, is that controversial? Like, I feel like it almost like people are trying to make that controversial.
that's right.
And like, you can sort of feel this energy with like people around you, like judging you if you're not obeying. And, obviously COVID's real. It's a virus. There's viruses. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's I'm just fascinated by the psychology of the whole thing, and it's amazing how easy it is to radically change social dynamics on of billions of people. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think this is a product of the internet and the information age, because I've mentioned this before. We're super bombarded with all these updates constantly, and I think that's what adds to people's fear and adds to people's like aggression towards the topic. So even if you're like thinking logically, you're like, all right, yes, the virus, actually in this area it's not really, there hasn't been too many cases, I don't need to be as protective. Yes, I'll wear a mask if I go inside, because that's how it gets transmitted when you're in an enclosed area and you're speaking to people, and like there's exchange of like spit and stuff. But if you're in an outdoor area where there's not too many cases, it's not like there's like a huge risk. Sometimes when I go to play basketball at the basketball court, there are guys who are wearing masks while they're playing basketball, and it's like like it's not that serious, man. We've played on this court several times. No one's gotten it here, like, and they're like, no, man, it's like if your mom told you have to wear a mask, you can just say that. It's like, you don't have to pretend like you're that scared of it. But but yeah, what about in China? I gotta ask him, because China's where the virus came from. Like, how is it over there?
Right now, it's pretty chill. Nobody cares that much. Nobody wears masks anymore. But it's
no way. Are you serious?
Like, I mean, like some people, like if you go on the street, like you could see like 30%, 25% of people wearing masks. But in the area where I'm at, it's just like Hangzhou, close to Shanghai. It's relatively chill, But it's like you still have to wear the mask when you're like going to like subway or bus. But now it's like it's not even a requirement. A driver you just wear the mask. It's like, all right, man, no problem,
But how many people wore masks there pre-COVID? Because I mean, mask culture is more prominent over there anyway, right? Like, people already did that.
What do you mean? You mean like before COVID?
Yeah, before COVID.
I don't know what like you're specifically talking about, because like I've seen people wearing masks like as a craze. I don't know why they did it, like some Korean trends or something. But as if you're gonna deep into the beginning of it, like I feel like Chinese started wearing masks overnight, basically. There were a lot of shortages.
Okay.
And
Well, I might be lumping Asian culture
No,
together, but like,
you're
yeah,
not
like
wrong.
you said,
You're not wrong. Yeah, for just so you know, Fedor, in Asia, like it's been super common to wear masks before COVID, not because of pandemics, but just because in Asian culture it's like considered considerate to, if you're sick, to wear a mask so that you don't get other people around you sick. So that's been in their culture for a while in Asia, in China, Japan, Korea, pretty much most all of Asia, East Asia.
So Tarik, you're saying that it typically when you would see that, it's because that person is a little bit sick.
Yeah, it's if they have like a cough or like they have a small fever.
yeah, but as well as like they were like might be a pimple just cropped up, and the girl just doesn't want to show it.
Yeah,
That's why I was like asking like a bunch of girls on the street, like, why do you wear a mask? Like, I'm not, infectious or something. But it's like,
I mean, that's an interesting. It does start to bridge into that territory. It's similar, like with headphones. Sometimes people just wear headphones and they're like not even listening to music necessarily. They just are wearing them because it's sort of a way to disconnect from. So it's like sunglasses, headphones, masks, like. These are all tools to kind of insulate yourself from like having to deal with people publicly.
Yeah.
And now it's like, so I'm not saying that is what's happened. Like that is probably a tiny percentage, that type of behavior, but it does start to bleed. The rationale for using the, different like protective devices are it can definitely expand.
That's insane, man. At this time, people been into the social medias and like trying to isolate themselves, not just by looking at their phone, but like wearing masks, glasses. It's kind of creepy and scary at the same time, because for like old school, old soul people, we like just to talk to hang out, So what do you think gonna happen in the future? Will be super fixed and terminated in those phones, or is there any chance that we're gonna socialize again?
I mean, I'm over the next year definitely going to be putting way more energy into the kind of in-person, in real life component of like what we facilitate on Minds, and just making it way easier for people to connect. I mean, actually, that's one of the things I like about dating apps is that they are social media not really, but like they're a social app that facilitates real life human connection. And so like, regardless of like talking shit about them and like, yeah, sure, there's plenty of problems associated with them, but the fact that is the point of the app is really cool. And it does a lot of good, to be honest. And, people are getting married, and like, that's, it's maybe a little scary and like, but that's just, that's I think a positive example of technology, feeding more of like a healthy type. I mean, and obviously it can also feed like super unhealthy human connection, but that's pretty much up to the people involved if they're going to be able to make that work or not. So I think taking that sort of model and like what we're really working on is trying to pair people, not necessarily for dating, obviously, but maybe, but more so like connecting people who think differently, finding people who want to connect with people who think differently from them, and building tools to pair them together so that they can chat or meet up or do whatever. And that's kind of the whole philosophy that we're working on with Daryl Davis and depolarization strategy, as opposed to like pushing people into an echo chamber, which on one end of things, like echo chambers aren't inherently bad. Like you have the right to sort of curate your own experience and, read what you want to read. Like technically that's an echo chamber, but, providing an alternative tool to connect with people who are on the opposite side of the political spectrum or whatever it is, these sort of counterintuitive algorithmic suggestions, I think are really interesting. And yeah, so I guess to answer your question, I think that I don't think IRL is dead. I think that it will never be, but it will probably become much more like sanitized, and people are probably going to be much more particular about what they're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I have a follow-up question, because since we're talking about like-minded people, so how did you find those people that are working on mines right now, like-minded? How did you get that crew working together?
Well, I found Mark, our CTO, online. I found him on like a nerdy hacker forum, and he was working on a one of the original pieces of code that we built on top of, and we've been working together for the last 10 years. It's amazing. So, little things like that. But like my brother is our COO, and so, he's obviously great to work with. And so my dad's also involved. So a little bit of family stuff. And then, honestly, it's such a particular skill set that, specifically when you're talking about software developers, like it's really languages. So you're trying to find people who speak a certain language, or like the 5 major languages that we use on mines for our infrastructure. And so your pool is limited to the people who speak those languages. And then through there, it's really figuring out people who are the most intuitive and who, you don't need to hold their hand. You just say, hey, okay, these languages. Like one of our main test project for developers who we hire is just like, okay, here's the thing, build it. We're not even going to talk to you, but like build it and show it to us. And like, if you can do it without needing to have your hand held, you have a good shot.
Wow. So language is
and honestly,
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Language is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, so it's interesting that you said that. But yeah, computer language, like like Python or others, that is another way to communicate with people, in teams.
Yeah, you don't necessarily think of programming languages as languages, but if we were a Chinese company, like, your pool of hires is, the people have to be able to speak Chinese. So it's just you work with the people who make the most sense. And I don't know. It's a lot of synchronicity. It's, people whose paths you cross as well and who make sense. And like, I first met Ian,
shout outs to Ian.
Shout out to Ian. I met him at Occupy. He came out. I met him on YouTube. And this is an early co-creator at Minds, and he who Tarik also knows because he's just kind of been in the universe,
in the mix.
But I did a video response to him on YouTube back when they had video responses. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember.
You guys might be
back in the day.
But he was like ripping on the Federal Reserve or something, and then I just did a video response, and then he got back to me again, and we sort of started this video conversation. And then he was like, "Yeah, I'm coming out east to go to Occupy," and he met up and came to my house, and that's where it started. He never left. He never left my fucking basement.
Legend has it he's still there, you know. But just backtracking a little bit, and we are coming up on the time limit. But I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about languages a little bit. Yeah, how is Minds doing internationally? Because we know it's based in the U.S., but is there sort of like an international marketing team or?
We've had some pretty big waves of growth internationally. Like we had like 250,000 users from Thailand sign up a few months ago, and like back in June, and that was kind of there's obviously a lot of unrest happening in Thailand right now. And we got like great coverage in The Economist and some other places for that wave. And we've had a big wave from Vietnam. We've had a big wave from India, not yet China, but I think maybe we have some Chinese users. But typically, like because the governments are more oppressive over there, it's you do see these reactions where a lot of like journalists and citizens will freak out over collusion, between governments and the social media companies with censorship and privacy violations. And so then they, drive a bunch of people to alternatives, and, that's just going to keep happening. So those are my favorite growth waves, because it's just so raw and real, and just, like that's why we exist, is so that when there's scandals, revolving doors between governments and big social media, that like we're there for the people to continue to be able to communicate. And yeah, so we're definitely going to work on it. We built out our language infrastructure so that we can actually technically support many different languages. Like if you go to translate.minds.com, you can help us. Like we have a lot of volunteers helping us translate into many different languages. So, that's really huge. You're obviously not going to really be able to support a country until you get translated. And then it's just a big deal to support a whole new language, because then you like almost need someone full-time on the team to be at minimum of a person to be able to respond to all those people. And so it's definitely a big effort. I mean, you need to have a huge team in order to support global translations, which is just necessary. So yeah, are you guys both, what languages do you speak?
I speak some Russian, Chinese, Japanese. That's mainly it.
I speak
Nice.
English, Russian, and Chinese. That's it.
Nice. Are you fluent in Chinese and Russian?
I'm native in Russian and
Native in Russian, yeah,
kinda-
right, obviously.
Yeah, I'm fluent in Chinese, sort of, like intermediate level, but still
But
working
you're
on
there,
it.
so yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy,
around me,
man.
man, nobody uses Minds, man. I gotta fucking promote that shit, I gotta be like, no, stop chatting, You gotta jump into Minds from now on.
Well, I think that's why we're working really hard on chat, because I think chat is really the most common use case in social media. Like most people are spending their time in chat rooms as opposed, like, yeah, I mean, you might post once in a while, but like the vast majority of social media use is in like private chat groups and just like messaging with friends and whatnot. And, we've kind of let Messenger fall to the wayside. And so probably by the end of this year, we're going to have a sick new Messenger, which supports like groups and videos and like video calls and all that good stuff. So let's hop on again, like maybe early next year, and hopefully maybe are you just screen capping this, or what are you doing?
Yeah, we're just screen capturing.
All right. Well, let's have a goal of like early next year. We'll do it again, and hopefully we can screen cap from Minds, and it'll be cooler, and we'll feel better.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Tarik,
Man.
Tarik, we're switching the social media now.
Yeah,
Finally.
that's right. Final words are like, I was a big proponent of starting our podcast on YouTube, but seeing how it's been treating us, I think we're moving to Minds because YouTube.
Hey
is
man,
just,
do both. I definitely am not naive to think that everything can be done on Minds or on alternatives alone. Like the shift has to come from that's where everyone is in a way. So we gotta diversify. I think is really the key. But because sometimes I feel like I get a little bit purist sometimes, and I think that's my role. Like I sort of have to walk the walk with regards to if I'm spending all my time, like I can't really be spending much time on Facebook or like these places that I'm working against, but at the same time that's where people are. And so we don't want to just be sort of stubborn in our own little bubble, because that could be detrimental to the movement on a larger scale. But so there's definitely a balance there. But yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Anyone who wants to hit me up, come find me minds.com/Ottman. And yeah, definitely let's blast this interview around the network once it's up.
Will do, man.
Great.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you again.
Yeah, cheers, guys.